Hello! You're watching a recording of my intended talk at the Internet of Things meetup in Oslo, January 31st, 2018. And the reason you're watching this is probably because my wife just went into labor. I'm truly sorry I can't join you guys, but I do hope you enjoy this recording. I attended the Amazon Web Services reInvent conference end of last year, and there were a bunch of cool stuff announced, specifically related to Internet of Things. The conference itself hosted more than 1,300 sessions and had an attendance with over 43,000 people, so it's just not a small gathering. My name is Joachim Lind, and I am the IoT technical lead at Webstep here in Oslo, Norway. I have a background within embedded development, wireless communication, and most importantly, creating IoT solutions. Recently, I acquired a certification for AWS Solutions Architect to complete the IoT value chain. Before I talk about AWS and the new IoT stuff, I want to give you a small primer with my view on Internet of Things and security. And after the highlights of reInvent, I'll share my top 4 tricks to stay secure. The value chain, or call it architecture, can be simplified as this. You have a node, gateway, cloud. Data is sent from a node that represents a state or a change in the physical world. This could be some sort of sensor, temperature sensor, humidity sensor, whatever. The data is then typically sent through a wireless communication to a gateway. For telecom, that would mean over GPRS, 4G, 5G, or the upcoming standard NB-IoT. For a smartphone, that would mean Bluetooth, Bluetooth Low Energy, Wi-Fi. And for some solutions, a proprietary gateway is required in order to achieve an optimum product in terms of robustness, performance, or power consumption. Examples for this are Sigfox, LoRa, etc. Information is then sent up to the cloud, usually through MQTT, and the true value is created here. This is where you can store the data, you analyze the massive amounts of data, you can make decisions based on predictions, and typically we present information today through visualizations or reports to a user, but in the future we might skip that part and directly make decisions out to actuators, motors, or whatever the end use case is, removing people from the equation altogether. But there's one challenge today, one prime challenge, and that's security. And I'm pretty sure you heard the nice term, the S in IoT stands for security, which is kind of funny. In some cases, it's actually true. Security is an ongoing challenge when it comes to connected devices. You need to physically secure the nodes, the sensors, from a hardware perspective. This is important. On the application side of things, it can be running a smartphone or the gateway, whatever, it must be secure. And obviously, the data handling, the data storage, the cloud has to be secure. But this is not the only 3 parts. Data traveling to or from any of those locations must be encrypted. So it's a good practice to have encryption running from end to end in the ecosystem. So, what happened in Vegas? Amazon Web Services made some really nice announcements around the Internet of Things. First off, this is what we had before the reInvent announcements. For those of you who are not familiar with the AWS offering, I'm going to go through the 2 services that was available. You have the AWS Greengrass, which is a software package from AWS that runs on IoT devices and allows them to connect to the cloud. It requires a minimum single core, 1 gigahertz, 128 megabytes of RAM running on x86 or an ARM device. This is, for example, a Raspberry Pi. So it's not for the most cost-optimized IoT devices. And then you have the AWS IoT Core, which is a managed cloud platform that allows IoT devices to interact with AWS services. It's been around since 2015 with primarily Device Gateway, which is an MQTT broker, Rules Engine, and Thing Shadow. The Thing Shadow is the main feature here, as it allows a flexible way to interact with states and data on the IoT devices. So all in all, this is a secure, bidirectional, sensor-to-cloud software adapter. So what's new? The AWS Greengrass was updated with a new few enhancements. over-the-air upgrade capability, which allows for security patching and feature enhancements after deployment. Access to local resources so that AWS Lambda functions running on Greengrass core devices can natively interact with the capabilities of the underlying host device. This means that you can access the camera, the serial bus, or GPU or GPIO on the actual hardware. We'll also open up support for OPC UA messaging protocol, which is a popular industrial automation protocol. Finally, capabilities to run machine learning inference. So this is a huge step towards creating intelligence at the edge by the help of SageMaker and Deeplands that I will mention later. AWS IoT Core was updated with an enhanced authentication feature, which allows additional authentication mechanisms such as OAuth to connect to AWS without using X509 certificate on their devices. So let's take a look at the completely new services. AWS Device Management is a service to onboard new devices with batch fleet provisioning. Additionally, it allows for real-time fleet indexing and search and orchestration for OTA updates. A fleet manager can, for example, script an onboarding procedure and maintain huge fleets, I'm talking about more than tens of millions of devices, in a simple and efficient manner. IoT Analytics is a fully managed service to solve the problem of IoT data being noisy and containing gaps and false readings. So it's a service to filter, process, transform, and enrich the data in a way that is intuitive for IoT-related data sets. For example, time series. You can do ad hoc queries, you can do sophisticated IoT analytics to create intelligence out of these data sets. You can connect this service to Jupyter Notebooks for machine learning capabilities or Amazon QuickSight for visualization. So if you have data analysts, they can use scientific and statistical analytics tool to produce reports and visualize intelligence through dashboards. So dedicated service for IoT analytics is a great addition to the IoT portfolio. Creating value out of data is a key principle for IoT to be successful. IoT Device Defender. This one is coming this year, 2018. It's a new service that allows continuous audit and monitor of deployed devices. With real-time anomaly detection and alert generation, it will be possible to act fast and potentially patch security vulnerabilities really rapidly. The details have not been fully disclosed, but security is a top priority, and as Werner Vogels, the CTO of AWS, nicely put it during his keynote, all engineers are now security engineers. Another service is IoT One-Click, which is a service to simply trigger an AWS Lambda function from an IoT device, which is, pretty neat in general. Amazon Free RTOS. Now we're talking. I'm gonna dig a bit deeper into Amazon Free RTOS because this is a really nice addition to the offering from AWS. Amazon Free RTOS is taking IoT to a whole new level for AWS. So while AWS Greengrass brought AWS to the edge, Amazon Free RTOS brings AWS to the edge of the edge. So let's take a look at the details. During his keynote, Andy Jassy, the CEO of AWS, mentioned that the CPU-MCU ratio of IoT devices on the market is 1:40. An MCU, which is a microcontroller, is a much more low cost than a CPU and often runs a system-on-chip solution with integrated radio, peripherals, and on-chip flash. So these devices are also typically powered by small batteries instead of the mains. IoT devices at the true edge can now be running a ripped solution that works seamlessly towards AWS IoT or AWS Greengrass. Amazon Free RTOS. It's a real-time embedded operating system for microcontrollers. So it's fully preemptive, it's multi-threaded, unlike many microcontroller traditional operating loops. It's based on Free RTOS, and the founder, Richard Berry, actually joined AWS a while back, which is good for the future roadmap. If you thought AWS would cash in for Amazon FreeRTOS, you're wrong. The release software is open source under MIT license and free for anyone to use. You will get AWS grade security, so TLS version 1.2 protocol is there, which provides privacy and data integrity between two communicating devices. Over-the-air firmware update is fully supported. All source code is available through the AWS console, SourceForge, GitHub, or the official website for FreeRTOS. Today, only Wi-Fi and Ethernet is supported, but my impression is that we'll soon see adaptations for Bluetooth Low Energy as well as other popular IoT wireless protocols. Even though Amazon FreeRTOS is really lightweight compared to AWS Greengrass, it still requires up to 128 kilobytes of flash, which is a lot for MCUs. The TLS eats 40K of this. So this is of course very dependent on the MCU architecture, and the Amazon FreeRTOS currently supports around 40 of these different various cores. However, while being able to optimize the core, I would not recommend to use Amazon FreeRTOS on an MCU with flash size less than 256 kilobytes, especially if you have a lot of application code. Luckily, most new wireless MCUs is getting more than 256 of flash space. For now, there are no guidelines on how to handle certificates securely in the MCU, unfortunately. In the example code, certificates had to be generated in the AWS console and then added to a header file. So this is not production friendly and should only be a method for evaluation. Be sure to note that. Currently, there are 4 qualified partners with AWS, so you have Texas Instruments, Microchip, NXP, and ST. These all have hardware available for you to evaluate Amazon FreeRTOS. My question is, where are all the other players? Competition is absolutely the best way to ensure solid, thought-through solutions. So hope to see more of those. But there you have it. So let's take a look at a system approach when designing an Internet of Things solution with AWS. So we separate the offering into 2 sections. One for the more hardware-oriented services related to things, whether they are sensors or actuators. These things operates towards the cloud solution, which offers storage and compute functionality. With the new Amazon FreeRTOS running in sensors and embedded devices, they can communicate directly to the AWS IoT service via Wi-Fi or Ethernet, or through AWS Greengrass if necessary. If you have a Raspberry Pi, for example, you might allow battery-operated peripheral sensors communicate with that instead of squandering energy on maintaining internet connection. Once the data is available through the AWS IoT, it's routed through the IoT rules engine to appropriate service depending on the use case scenario or the end application. So there are some really cool ways to visualize Internet of Things in AWS, which is my next topic. Dashboards are about to be one step more interactive. With virtual reality and augmented reality combined with intelligent voice and video services, we are getting closer to a new way of designing user experience. Amazon Sumerian is a new service for virtual and augmented reality applications. It's all about creating and running 3D applications quickly. The service offers a tool to create 3D environments with ease and use Sumerian hosts to interact with users. They're essentially 3D models that mimic human behavior while interacting with users. And I can't wait to see all the innovative front-ends solutions boosted by this. I'm not sure anyone noticed, but it might be revolutionizing the way we interact with IoT solutions. With the WebGL support, you'll actually have a 3D VR, AR environments in any browser. So if using AWS IoT, you can use the Thing Shadow to allow the physical world to interact with a 3D visualization. For example, you're moving something in the real world, the sensors pick that up and modifies the 3D model the same way. Let's take a look about take a closer look at the more intelligent stuff going on in terms of the new offering. So Amazon SageMaker, it is a new service that simplifies how machine learning models are built, trained, and deployed. So ironically and ingeniously, SageMaker is using machine learning to train the machine learning models, making the process a whole lot easier. This reduces the level of knowledge required to integrate machine learning into existing solutions. Since more and more IoT products tend to utilize machine learning to crunch intelligence out of sensor data, it is good to know that it's now even simpler. So not only did they announce this service, they also had a product announcement. Deep Lens. Together with the capabilities of deploying the machine learning inference on AWS Greengrass, we will see a lot of new IoT concepts and cool products. One example is the upcoming AWS Deep Lens development platform, essentially a fully programmable, deep learning enabled video camera. It runs AWS Greengrass on a CPU and utilizes a GPU to run the machine learning inference engine. It's targeted for release in April 2018, but you can pre-order it today at Amazon. So a lot of cool IoT stuff at re:Invent last year. It should be mentioned that even though Amazon Web Services has the widest offering, there is significant competition from Microsoft, Google, and IBM, especially related to the Internet of Things. Covering security from the AWS perspective is a topic on its own, and I won't do that in this session. But I do want to highlight just a few things. As I promised you, as a consumer, you should have these 4 things in mind. Number 1, please consider the cost of the product you're about to purchase. When it comes to Internet of Things, cheaper is seldom better. There is no direct correlation between price and security, but history has shown that the lowest cost devices tend to have the most vulnerabilities and backdoors, also with the least amount of support when things go bad. Number 2, please avoid connecting the devices directly to the internet. If you have a router, it probably has a built-in firewall. Use it. Keep your IoT devices behind that firewall. Number 3, change default credentials to complex passwords that is known to only you. If you forget the password, most devices have a gracefully hidden reset switch that can be used to issue a factory reset. If you cannot change the default credentials, please consider not using the device at all. Finally, number 4, update the firmware. Hardware vendors often push security updates for the software that powers the consumer device. It is a good idea to visit the vendor's website and check for firmware updates before putting your IoT things to use. And check back periodically for new updates. With that, I'd like to thank you for your time. I hope you learned a few new things. Have a great evening. Don't hesitate to reach out to me if you have any questions.